Okay, it's Friday, September 16th. This is an end of the day and an end of the week SPY recap. You can see here today, we'll get to it in a minute. We gapped down pretty big, but we ended up with a little bit of a green bar. So we didn't follow through all that much, and we ended up green. So that sets up some certain possibilities for next week. First of all, if we're a little green and we start up to start the week, first of all, looking at the week, you can see here we ended up with this outside bar to the downside. So that's broadening action on its own. The way these bars usually work is either you get 3-2 continuation, which is definitely a possibility given I'll get to the monthly chart where we're still 2 down on the month towards the end of September with a target down here. So you could get a little continuation. Sometimes you get not that much follow through, and then you get the 3-2 down continuation, 2 up reversal. That would be a very powerful upside signal if it develops. Sometimes you get an inside bar here, a 3-1. That's a 3 bar. A 1 would be an inside bar, and then you have to look to the next week to see whether that 1 goes up or down, and that's sort of a thing. So it's going to be a little tricky in terms of how the week starts, and I think the Fed also has some interest rate, announcements next week at some point, which could throw some volatility into the mix. But let's just say we start up a little bit to start the week. So in other words, we're not getting a 2 down, a 2 down bar on the week to start. That immediately sets a target up to these 2 daily bars up here. And if you look at those 2 daily bars, I drew a red line. That also lines up with the midpoint of the week. So it is possible we start up, we come right to the midpoint of that week, but we're still kind of an inside bar. So at that point, I don't have to feel like, because we took out the midpoint, we're definitely going to the top of that week. If anything, I could see us broadening out here, maybe failing at some point, and then starting back down. So we'll keep that in mind. I mean, if we start a little lower to start the week, and in other words, somehow we start down and take out the weekly low, then move up with some kind of reversal bar. Let's say we gap down, but we take out the midpoint of this bar on Monday, and then that's a signal of the upside. And then we come all the way up here. All of a sudden, that might be a 2 down failure on this week, crossing the midpoint and heading higher. But we'll have to just see really what develops on Monday. To me, when you see this kind of green bar, you kind of expect a little bit of upside. Who knows what's going to happen over the weekend, but given this gap down that couldn't follow through, I could see it definitely going up. Another interesting thing would be if we, start up a little bit, but we can't reach these targets and then turn down. That would be a very nice sell signal to me to kind of get a little bit of a 3-2. You expect, when you see the big red bar, you do expect a little probe lower at some point. So I'm still really looking for that, and I'm kind of watching the midpoint of this week. But it depends how it happens. With this green bar, I don't know if it's going to immediately go down, or we might have a little bit of an upside move for a day or two that fails to reach these targets. Anytime you have an upside move that fails to reach its targets, and then you get a 2 down, that's kind of a very powerful signal that you're going to be heading back down towards those lows and possibly lower. On the opening video today, I drew my channel, that if you want to look at that video, to show that we do have that monthly target down here. We still didn't reach this next target on the daily chart, on the weekly chart. If I go back, if we're going to have a 2 down continuation, there's this target down here. We didn't reach that today, and this is the monthly target. So there's a lot of things developing. In terms of today, just the final thought, I discussed, there's a mid-morning video I shot. I can show you how there was a little small loss here if you would have attempted a very aggressive short trade early, but then there was a very nice trade here to take out those lows. I shot a video here to say that at this point, it's kind of questionable if we follow through lower, or if if that's it for the day. And as it turns out, if you really watch price action, we did have an attempt to roll over once, up, and twice. So once it kind of then moved above here, you kind of knew, that this, you didn't know for sure, but it was a way to say we're not going to get that downside follow through. You had an opportunity here, an hour and a half, to roll over and continue lower, and then it decided to break higher, and then it worked towards the top of the range, but it didn't really set up any easy, long bias. And then when you look at a lot of stocks today, if I just click on them, even though the market itself kind of just stabilized, some stocks like Meta, if you had nice down moves all day, in line with the overall, downward bias on the day, and a stock like Airbnb from the open, went down. But then there were other stocks like Nvidia that moved up to start the session. You can see here, and Tesla is more in line with the regular market, where it kind of didn't follow through to the downside, but then moved, it didn't really have an attempt lower, but it followed it up if you know, just after that first little move down and kind of grind it up all day. And in, you know, stocks like Netflix didn't really move down to the start. So if you're going to be biased to the downside, you still had to look at each individual stock. You know, the S&P as a whole, some of it was up, some of it was down, but there were some good short trades. If you just had, again, it's always looking at the opening price action relative to the overnight range, and if you can break below that, those are the ones that'll continue lower. And when you see stocks like Netflix having a hard time, you know, it broke below for one bar, but then it didn't follow through for any kind of signal. So these stocks like this ended up going up. So again, you know the stocks to avoid if you watch opening price action and the pre-market, you know, range. That's sort of what I keep going over with all these videos. So anyway, let's see what happens into next week. It's a big 3 weeks, so that broadening action makes it tough to know, you know, exactly how much follow through you're going to get to the downside, since there's a little bit of exhaustion temporarily on the daily chart to the downside. But I'm going to stick with this bias until everything changes, that this monthly chart is 2 down and heading towards that target. So somehow I think we're going to get there unless something really changes. It's just a matter, do we immediately start there tomorrow, you know, on Monday? Do we go up first? If we go up, we want to see if we fail at these levels, or if we hit those levels. That could be a good broadening area to then be kind of right at the top of this, you know, if you look at it this angle, you know, heading down this trend line, that could be something where it reverses and starts down. So there's time to get here, you know, to the bottom of this range and the monthly target. It's just a question of how you're going to do it within here. So the key thing will be, maybe it'll be tough on Monday to make any trades, you know, to the short side. Let's assume you really have that short bias, but somewhere along the line, there'll probably be if things really can't move up, there'll be an excellent signal. So whether it's, you know, sometimes all you need is just 1 or 2 good days where it's just very clear what's developing price action wise as we head to those targets. So we're going to keep that target in mind unless something really changes. And that's going to require, you know, a while. After this kind of a bar, you know, even if we start up to start the week, like I said, the likelihood is you'll just have an inside week at the most, and then it would take next week to really feel comfortable going long. So that's what I wanted to point out. You know, main thing this week, we had a lot of targets to the downside, and they were all hit. So there was a lot of good trading in here during the day, you know, during these days. So anyway, we'll end it there, and let's just see how it opens next week. Again, you know, interest rates, I think, will be a volatility factor, and we'll look for a really good, you know, we'll just look for clear signals, and it's just going to be day by day, as it always is.